Welcome to the Surviving Siblings podcast. I'm your host, Maya Roffler. As a surviving sibling myself, I knew that I wanted to share my story, my brother's story. I lost my brother to a homicide in November 2016, and after going through this experience, I knew that I wanted to share my story and his story. And it's taken me quite some time to come to the mic to tell it, but I knew it was an important one to tell. So here I am to share his story and mine with you. And it's important that I tell the story of the surviving sibling, the forgotten mourner, the story that is not told enough. So thank you for coming with me on this journey. And now it's your turn to share your stories. That is correct. We are back for season 2, and it is now about telling your stories. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to my story, my brother's story, Andreas, in season 1. It means the absolute world to me that I can share this with such an incredible audience and fellow surviving siblings, and we have an incredible season ready for you. And today is a special edition episode. It is not only my birthday, but more importantly, my brother Andreas's birthday. We share the same birthday, September 21st, as I've mentioned in season 1. But today I want to spend talking about my brother. I want to spend talking about being a surviving sibling, someone who shares the same birthday as her brother, 3 years apart. And I want to tell a little bit more about the story of my brother and I and our birthday stories. And I want to share with all of you how I've dealt with the past 6 years, specifically around celebrations and holidays and things like birthdays and the highs and the lows, and just be completely vulnerable with all of you as I continue to be, and the purpose of this podcast. And when I was sitting there mapping out season 2 with my incredible producer and editor, she's a rock star, so thank you. We always release the podcast on Wednesday, and soon realized that this would be coming out on my brother and I's birthday, the second episode. And I thought it would be really quite beautiful and appropriate to, one, of course, talk about my brother and talk about his birthday and what it meant to me and does mean to me still to share his birth date and birthday with him, but also take advantage of the fact that it falls on this day, and even though we're sharing your stories in this season, kind of reconnect with all of you, and I will do that again in the final episode this season, and focus on something that is just difficult for all of us, which are holidays and milestones. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So it was interesting that the second episode fell on our birthday. So here we are to talk about that. And I'm sure a lot of you go through this. Today, on his birthday and my birthday, I'm thinking about how old he would have been. And he's forever 27. But he would have been 33. And I think a lot about that. I think it's quite natural that we all think a lot about that. I noticed that in a lot of my surviving sibling group that I'm a part of, or even the individuals that I interview that you're going to hear on this season, and just people that I meet that go through this on TikTok and different social media. It doesn't matter. We all kind of go through this where we really think through a couple different things. You know, if we are getting to the age, that our surviving sibling, was at when they passed away, that's something that happens. For me, it's different because my brother was younger. So I think about where I was at 33. And I was, newly married and doing entrepreneurship. And, I'm thinking through all these things. And it's interesting. And so you can't help but fantasize, what would they have been doing? If you're kind of the older sibling, right? Or you're a sibling who watches that individual never get to the age that you're thinking about, and just thinking through all those different aspects of it. But I think that's normal. And I want to tell you that so you know that you're not alone when you think about those aspects of birthdays. And you're thinking about, oh, well, my brother is forever, say your brother's forever 33 and you turn 33. You now know what it feels like to be 33. But then when you start to turn 34 and 35 and 36, he's never going to turn that age. So you start to realize that, and that can be very difficult. And you start to think about all the things you're doing at those ages that they'll never get to do. And I knew that would be challenging, I think, pretty early on, because I talked about it in the eulogy that I read openly to all of you for the very first time on season 1. I talked about not focusing on the things that he wouldn't do, but focusing on all the things that he had done. And I think that's probably my advice to all of you as surviving siblings, to do that, to focus on what your surviving sibling was able to do and not so much what they were unable to do in however long their lifetime was. If it was 5 years, 50 years, whatever it was, anywhere in between. In my case, it was 27 years for my brother. And so I choose, and I'm in a different place now, but in the eulogy, I chose that path. But in my heart and in my head, I was still battling a lot. I was still wanting to lean into more of the negative side. And I was angry. He's never going to get married. He's never going to have kids. He's never going to fulfill his career. He's never. I was getting really caught up in the never. And I find myself sitting here, turning 36 myself, and he would have been 33, thinking about, what life was like for me at 33. It's not that long ago, 3 years ago. And, he never got to see me get married and do these things in my life, my business ventures and things that this gets me emotional. But I choose to trust, when I start to think about that he is with me. And this is a part of the bigger story for me and my personal story. So I can completely understand how it can be emotional and how you can get caught in the never. He will never, or she will never, as your sibling. I understand. And so that leads me to how do we celebrate them? How do we honor them on these significant days like birthdays? And do it in a way that is uplifting. That's a challenge, right? It's a big challenge. And it was an evolution for me. And with it being my own birthday as well, I want to take you back on a little journey with me and, again, be very open, raw, and vulnerable with you. And my first real vivid memory, which I may have shared some of this in season 1, but I'm going to go real deep with you. My first vivid memory, I may have some that pop up of like me at 2, maybe some of 3, but I truly remember this was my 3rd birthday when Andreas was born. This is the most vivid one. I remember everything that I was wearing. I remember this blue dress with stripes on it. I remember how long my hair was. I remember my grandmother, my mom's mother, being there. I remember my sister running down the hall, my sister who's a year younger than me, running down the hall, screaming my baby brother. I'll never forget it. I can hear the echoes of her voice just sitting here talking to you right now. That was my first real vivid memory that's carried with me 33 years later. And I remember walking into the room where my mother was. My mother had a cesarean for him. And so those were the days when you actually got to stay in the hospital a little bit more, so I hear. So she was staying in the hospital, and my father was with her, and we turned to the corner, and we walked into this room, and I remember climbing up these little steps, which they were little, to look over into like the clear baby bed that are in hospitals to look at my brother. And my perception of that at the time was, it felt like a mountain, climbing a mountain, because I'm this tiny little 3-year-old girl. And I remember my mother feeling kind of like, if you watch Modern Family, I was talking about this with a girlfriend recently, but if you watch Modern Family, when Gloria is going to have her next child and they're going to have the same birthday and she wants to keep her child in, I kind of felt like my mother was a lot like Gloria in that way. And I don't think that she was trying to force that or anything, but I think she knew that was going to be a unique situation. Having, two birthdays, and I was the first child, and that was always special, and that is special in life. But I looked down at my brother, and that's one of my first memories. And I remember also looking on to the other side of like the curtain, and there was this woman who actually favored my aunt on my father's side. So she's married to my father's brother. And I remember that so vividly. And I remember looking back down at my brother, and I remember being in this room, and I remember my mom having these roses and these peanut M&Ms that was like her thing. And just those specific little memories. And it's so special to me now that is my first big memory, the first thing that I remember. So every birthday that I have, of course, I remember that. But throughout my childhood, I can't say I loved sharing my birthday with my brother. When you are moving through different time periods, I wanted unicorn parties and he wanted to dig up dinosaurs in the backyard. And even though we were exceptionally close through our entire childhood, it wasn't always fun to share the spotlight. But so we'd have to kind of trade off. So my mother would say, okay, so this year you get to celebrate on the actual day, and next year Andreas gets to do it, or vice versa. We would trade off. We hope you're enjoying this incredible episode of the Surviving Siblings podcast. I'm your host, Maya Roffler. We'll be back in just a minute after hearing from our incredible sponsor. Sibling relationships are eternal. Our siblings are such an integral part of who we are. We don't move on when we lose a sibling, although we can eventually move forward. That is why it's essential as surviving siblings to hold on to our sibling memories, stories, and precious moments. Sibsforever.org was created to be your online memory book. It was designed and built by a surviving sibling for all surviving siblings everywhere. It is a secure and private platform for surviving siblings to chronicle memories through storytelling, pictures, and videos. Sibsforever.org is a virtual platform for you, the surviving sibling, to commemorate and honor your sibling relationship. Visit sibsforever.org today to create your free profile and start building beautiful commemorative web pages, including photo and video galleries featuring you and your sibling. And then as we got older, we didn't care, obviously. It wasn't a big deal. We just wanted to go party and have fun, or, as that age started to occur. And then we thought it was really cool. We thought it was really cool that we had the same birthday. There was no competition for a party. We just wanted to go to a big party as we got older. And my brother and I were never in the same school because I was young for my grade and he was at the right age. So my younger sister, who's just a year younger than me, and him were like freshman and senior together, and I was a freshman in college. So my brother and I never were in the same school unless it was when we were super young and we were in private schools. So, it was like when you got older, it was where was the party at? It was a different shift. And it was also freaky because we had the same due date and we were both 2 weeks late and we weighed the same and we were born on the same day. It was really bizarre, and had such a deep connection, and his passing has affected me in such a deep capacity. And so this day brings all of this up, brings all of the memories of sharing this birthday together with him and the evolution of what that was like, having to have the separate unicorn and dinosaur parties and, I can still hear his voice, Maya, 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 when he found these like fossils from a museum, a birthday that my mother had done when we lived in Minnesota. And I'm like, I flash through all of these birthdays, and it makes me very emotional. And I choose to live in those memories and those moments because I feel like if I live in the nevers, it would eat me alive. It would take me to a place where I don't know that I would be able to get out of it easily. And I've learned that you can't live life like that, because if you do, you'll start to think life doesn't make sense at all, and you'll have difficulty making sense of anything. Then that's at least my perspective and my opinion of it. And sometimes things don't make sense in life. It doesn't make sense sometimes to me that my brother was taken. And then sometimes I've gotten to a place, as I described before to all of you, and I talk about often on social media, I have gotten to a place where sometimes it does make sense to me because he was struggling in life in a lot of ways with different things, with substance, with emotion, with, just different aspects of his life. But what doesn't make sense to me was how he was taken from us. So that's why I feel diving into the never, or holding on to the nevers, as I like to call it, my own psychology. Disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist, so please don't take that as true therapy. Go to a real therapist. But getting caught up in the nevers is something that I think could be detrimental. So focusing on the things that you had together, those moments that you had together. And I talk to my brother as well. I talk to him all the time. Trust me, I've talked to him a lot while producing this podcast and wanting to know, prior to wanting to know if he wanted his story out there. And that's been a beautiful experience for me, and knowing that he's with me. But a lot of people ask me, how do I deal, this is the emotional side of dealing with these days, right? What memories do I think of? Where do I go mentally or emotionally? That's the answer. This is what I do. I think back to the first memory. I think back on all the good times, all those things, and it makes me emotional. It makes me emotional sitting here right now talking to you about it. He's the most special person, and I'll never see him in the physical world again. And that will always be hard. And there's that never. And so when I focus on what is something that I can do to celebrate, then that's what shifts me to my ceremonial things that I do. So my brother absolutely loved champagne. I mean, think rap videos, guys. Think like spraying the champagne everywhere. And then also think like fine dining. That was like the best way to maybe merge him together and talk about him in that respect, because he loved really good food. And interestingly enough, I married a chef. So he loved champagne. So I always have a glass of champagne for him on my birthday. If it's a celebration day, or if it's like a birthday thing, I have a lot of champagne. But if sometimes, my birthday falls on like a weekday, so I'm just having a glass or two at dinner. And then, when the birthday celebration happens, there's bottles popping. Always happens, always for him. You'll always see me post a picture on social media about that. I constantly have sunflowers around as well on his birthday, and also his death. And some of you call this a couple different things, the day in which your sibling has passed. I've seen a lot of different terms for it. And like heaven anniversary, or heaven, like your heaven birthday. And there's a lot of terms out there, and I think they're so beautiful. They're much, much more beautiful than the terms that I have. So I really love that, and feel free to drop a message and share that. But those are things that I do where it's just special. And we'll add this as well on our birthday, because it's our birthday. It will always be our birthday. I always have a glass of champagne. Oh, this is getting me emotional. So today, if you're listening to this when it comes out on our birthday, happy birthday, Andreas, to myself, I will always make sure, even if, I'm having a celebration with friends or with my husband, I always make sure that I have one glass of champagne just by myself. And that's for him. That's for my brother. That makes me very emotional. See, 6 years later, it still happens, guys. And you'll hear from people on this season, choked up. You'll hear from people on the season where it's 20, 30 plus years. It still happens. And it's okay. It's okay. And I sit there with at least one glass, just me and him. That's a moment. That's something special for me. And it's shifted my mindset about our birthday. You guys gotta understand, I was like September 1st hit, I'm like the girl that posts on social media, Rihanna putting her crown on. It's my birthday month. I was obsessed. That all ended. That ended very quickly, right afterwards. And I really tried to get that back by having this like huge housewives party in 2017. And it was fun. It was a fun party. But I was very sad. I was very numb. And then after that, I spent my birthdays with girlfriends, and then I had met my husband. And so I learned that I needed something to connect me and wanted to have something to connect me to my brother, to have that special, deep relationship, because we had had this whole journey together. My first memory is of our birthday. How am I going to continue the rest of my life without something special? And once I was able to craft that, and I'm sure it's going to continue to evolve, and I'm excited to continue to share that with all of you, how I commemorate him. But that's so special and important to me that I have a moment where I sit with a really fabulous champagne that he loved, and I sit there and I think about it, man, I cry. But it's not the same as it used to be. I cry because I miss him. I cry because I'm sad, but I cry because I'm also happy, because it's a moment just to be together. And I would highly recommend it, whatever that is for you. Maybe you guys really loved a certain cake, or maybe he loved a certain cake, which I do that kind of stuff too. But champagne is the thing. Like, that's his thing. And it's special. So you'll see the picture if you're watching it today. You will. September 21st. But this isn't just isolated to our birthday, even though that is probably the most special day. There's also November 21st, which interestingly enough, it's also a 21, when he died. That's his heaven date, or his heaven birthday. You guys, I love that. I've read that. That's so beautiful. I'm going to start using that. And on that day, I have a ritual as well. I go down to where his ashes are, even though I still have some. Some of us in the family decided to keep them, as I've shared in the past. But that's where the majority of them were, where they were put into the creek where he's spent a lot of time. But I go there every single year, and I bring a number of sunflowers. Now it's, when he first passed, I just brought sunflowers. Now I bring the number of sunflowers for the years that he has been in heaven. And I bring him champs, of course, because we all know now he's like a champs lover. And I also bring him this specific pizza from this place in our hometown, because it's in our hometown. So people will know this place. It's called Partners Pizza. If you're local to there, no one else will know what I'm talking about. But my family is Swedish and Swiss, and they make this like potato pizza. It's super fattening, a million calories, and I leave like a little piece of it there with him. But now my husband and I sit there and we eat it together, and I talk about him, and my husband just listens, and I just talk. And I've had different experiences every time I've gone. It's been totally different. I do cry every single time. I'll cry again this year, I'm sure. And I laugh, though. I laugh about certain stories, certain things come up. I talk to him. I spend some of the time alone as well. And that's these are the two most important things that I do during the year. And I know it's going to be different for everyone, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally, everything for me, they're both just so important. I can't miss it. I don't want to miss it. It's a milestone. It keeps him alive. It keeps him in my heart. Not that he wouldn't be, but when I can't describe it beautifully enough, but I'm going to try, because I always want to try. For you, as my surviving siblings, I want you to know what this feels like. And if you know what it feels like, you're going to relate. But it's so hard to bottle these feelings or put them in words sometimes. But when I get up from that rock, because it's like a rock that goes into the creek, and when I always throw each one of the sunflowers into the water, and I leave him this little piece of pizza, and I dump some of the champagne into the water. And don't worry, I'm not contaminating the water. It's just a little bit here, a little bit there, and the food doesn't necessarily go into the water. Disclaimer, okay? But it's ceremonial. And when I get up from there and I walk back through the woods to my car, there's a feeling inside of myself where I walk and I usually feel quite heavy at that time of the year and quite sad, and I can feel it coming over me right now as I'm telling you this. And when I get up after that, having that time, having that moment in time with him, my brother, in that space, and making conscious and an unconscious effort to just be completely open and there for him and celebrating him, it feels like sometimes I don't even remember walking back to the car. Like, I do remember walking to the rocks, and no, it's not the champagne, okay? I know that's what you're going to say, that it's not that. It's this feeling of levity that I have, this feeling of connectedness. I feel recharged. I feel plugged back in. I feel like I'm not alone. Yet I know that he's physically not going to walk around that corner or say, just kidding, this isn't real. There's a part of me that feels refueled with his spirit in some way. And whatever those holidays or milestones are for you, whatever those times are for you with your brother or sister, or if you have multi-losses in your life, I would encourage you to do what would be special for your brother or your sister, whatever was special between the two of you. It's life-changing for me to know that that's going to happen. And I love the fact that I share the same birthday as my brother. It's something that I'm so proud of, and I giggle at the fact now that we thought about this as kids. It's funny. It's really funny to me. All those types of things are funny, and I like talking about them, and I like sharing them with you. And I'm sure you can listen to this and think about, a 3-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl, and he's saying, I want dinosaurs, and I'm saying, I want unicorns. I mean, this is very believable to anybody listening. And, then we get into our, teen years, and we don't care about this stuff anymore. We don't really, doesn't bother us. We just want to go party. We want to have fun, maybe too much fun. And then the clubbing years happened, and my brother always just wanted to pop bottles. And, Christmases and Thanksgivings, those holidays, I want to move into those, and I want to talk about those. So for me, it's a little different in commemorating my brother. He's very much a part of those holidays in my home. I have ornaments on one of my trees, because we have one tree downstairs, disclaimer. We have one tree downstairs that's just like frosted and sparkly, and like there's nothing on there. It's nothing. But our other tree that has all our ornaments, like there's ornaments on there to commemorate my brother and to remember my brother, and he's definitely a part of Christmas. Christmas is my not so favorite holiday. I'm not really into it. I went through years and years of dysfunctional family holidays, and my brother was a part of those. So I don't really choose to make that about my brother, because that's not a time. We have some really great memories, but it's not the time. It's not my time. It's not where I find my strength from him. It's not where I find my beautiful place. And it's not just isolated from him. I mean, we came from a broken home, and We came from a family where we did have some really beautiful holidays, but we also had some really screwed up holidays. And so I'm being just very real and honest and open, not only with all of you, but with myself. And that was a game changer for myself. I don't particularly hate Christmas, but I don't particularly love it. And I've been redefining what that means for me and my own family as we build a family. And it's a game changer, it is. But there are small things that I will do, like my husband will make things that we had traditionally, and so there's a few accents there because I do find myself missing my brother around the holidays. But there's these things called St. Lucia buns. They're Swedish. My brother used to lather on like tons of butter or like peanut butter and just weird things on top of it and eat them nonstop. And so I think it was last Christmas or the Christmas before, my husband, past 2 Christmases, he's been trying to make them gluten-free so I can have them, because that is something that keeps me close to my brother. So little things like that. Same thing for like Thanksgiving. I am not a huge Thanksgiving fan because my brother died less than 2 days before Thanksgiving. It's a very traumatizing holiday for me. So what I do, and it typically falls right around there, is that's when I go down to the creek. That's when I do the ritual for my brother. And my family is very aware of the fact that that's a fragile time for myself. And so I like to be alone. I need that space. And that's something that I also do because I want to feel connected to Andreas and remember him during that time. And I kind of need a mental and emotional break from life. I think that's always going to be a time of the year that I'm just not into. Christmas is growing on me, though, I will tell you. It's growing on me, which is probably why I wanted to incorporate some foods that remind me of my family and my brother, because I can pull a little more positivity out of that. But I find, that those for me, those are the milestones, those are the holidays, and that's how I choose to commemorate and remember. I know that I've shared about tattooing, and I have a huge tattoo down the side now that I've added on. I had his ashes, and now I have flowers for myself and my brother, and that's been huge for me as well. And being able to have that connection and have something on my body where I feel like, and in my body, because his ashes are in me, and he's with me every single day. But that was a personal choice. But I do see a lot of people doing that. I see a lot of people doing tattoos to commemorate, and I think there's a reason we do that. And we want to keep the person alive. We want to keep their spirit alive, and we want them to be remembered in a way that we remember them. I think that was a big moment for myself. I think realizing that we want this person that we love, because we tend to talk about them in the present tense because we still feel like they're with us, and I believe they are. But ultimately we want them to be remembered the way we are remembering them. So that's why we do the things that we do with the birthdays, the Christmases, the Thanksgivings, whatever special holidays happen in your culture or happened in your culture, and maybe you're reigniting them or bringing them forth. We name our children, maybe our animals, whoever, after them, and to honor them. I think that's really beautiful as well. But we are doing this because we want people to see them through the eyes of us. And I think some people don't understand that always, and may think it's selfish, maybe think it's, get over it, move on. Let me tell you something. If you have anybody in your life that's telling you to get over it or move on, you need to move on from them, because this will be with you for the rest of your life. You will think about your sibling for the rest of your life. You are allowed to mourn as long as you need to. That is your timeline. That is no one else's. And there's really no timeline. It's not linear. But I can promise you this, you can move forward. Just because I sit here today and I'm choked up and I'm crying about Andreas and our birthday. it doesn't mean that I feel the same way that I did 6 years ago. And that makes me choked up. Because I have an inner strength that I didn't have almost 6 years ago. And it doesn't mean that I wanted my brother to die, and it doesn't mean that I don't miss him, but it means that you learn to move forward with your grief. And it means that you learn to move forward because you have tools and you have support, and you surround yourself with people that are going to listen to you and embrace your grief and know that this is a part of you. It's a part of you. It's not a part of a period of time for you. It's a part of you. My brother's a part of me. That's why, they say, to go back to what we're focusing on in this episode, talking about a lot though, they say that the first year is the most challenging. And in some ways it is, and then in some ways that's kind of false. I mean, it is and it isn't. The first, birthday, the first Christmas, the first death date or heaven birthday, those are very challenging moments because you're realizing, oh my gosh, like for me, the first birthday was, my 31st, and I had to realize, okay, like, I'm going to throw this huge housewife party. My birthday is, I don't share it with my brother. Like, he's not moving forward. He's not moving closer to 30. He's not turning 28. That's what happens with those first ones. Like, they're not progressing in life. Same with the Christmases, same with the Thanksgivings. Like, they're not going to be a part of the family situation. And, most of you know from season 1, my family dynamic was completely shot. It was on shaky ground to begin with, but completely shot at that point. So it's not like we were getting together anyway, but any chance for that, I don't know. You never know what the future holds. But I think those realizations for me were sad, tough, painful, and that's why the year of firsts and those milestones are intense, because you're facing the reality of, oh, he or she, your brother or sister or whomever, you've lost. If it's multiple losses, obviously we're talking about siblings, you're starting to go through realizations, and that's why it's so difficult, because you're realizing they're never going to see a Christmas tree with me again. They're never going to sit down and have turkey with me again. We're never going to be on Easter Sunday together again. They're not going to share Valentine's Day with their spouse, significant other, kids. No spring break with their children, or no spring break for them, if they're a kid, whatever, fill in the blank. That's why, in my opinion, the year of firsts is so tough, because it sets in the reality of the nevers, what they're never going to do again, and what they're never going to get to do. And so what helped me, and what helped me move in the right direction with this, was, even though I said it in the eulogy, and I said, let's focus on what he did do, my intentions were great, but I really had to go through the first year of everything to realize that pain, realize the nevers, feel all of that, and then go, okay, well, how am I going to commemorate him? How am I going to honor Andreas on our birthday? How am I going to make that special every year? And how am I going to make the holidays that I want with him special, and his angel anniversary, or his heaven anniversary, which is the death date? How am I going to make that special for us in a spiritual event, and not just this glum event where I'm going down and leaving flowers? No, I want a reconnection between us. And so that took some work and evolution for me, but I'm very happy with where I'm at now with it, and I feel like it continues to evolve in the positive and correct direction. And I definitely want that for every surviving sibling, and it's going to look different for every single one of you. I guess my ultimate advice in commemorating your sibling, going through the birthdays, the holidays, the big dates that we celebrate, is to learn to shift away from the nevers. Learn to shift away from thinking about, oh, they'll never turn this age, they'll never experience this. and think about what you two experienced together. Think about connecting with people who do want to talk about the positive things and the things that your brother or sister did experience, and the light and the love that they brought to you. I know that, recently for me, doing that with my youngest sister is very special for me. Was very special. And I'm glad to be able to do that with someone in my family. Now, I have not been able to do that with someone in my family. And that's been a new addition to my ability to commemorate my brother. Makes me very emotional. And to honor him. And that's why I tell people in this journey as well, you just don't know. You don't know where it's going to go. And, I have a very dark story about my family, and it's very tragic, but you're going to hear some really positive stories on this podcast as well. And I hope that they give you hope. That's the point. And I'm here to tell you that my story is still going. My grief journey is lifelong. It's still going, and I have some wins, and I am going to live in the positive and the grateful side of life. And I'm glad that I do have my youngest sister in my life to be able to talk about these things now and remember my brother in this beautiful way. And that's how I chose to shift. And I even talk about this now, and I feel pain in my heart, but I feel so much love. And I know he gave so much in the 27 years that he was here, and I do know that he was hurting. And so I choose consciously to have my glass of champagne today on our birthday together. I'll always have at least one or two little bites of something that we both love to eat as well. We both love cheesecake. He loved peanut butter, things like that. Always sneak that in there too. Little things like that make me just smile and know that he's with me. And that's going to look different for you and for your relationship. And I love hearing all of your stories and what you do. So write to me, leave me voice messages on our website, or shoot me a message on social, connect with us. I would love to hear what you do to commemorate your siblings who are now in heaven and have moved on to the other side. What do you do to remember them on those special days? Today I'll be remembering Andreas, my brother, on our birthday. And again, my best advice to you is not to focus on the never. Focus on what you have together, because they're still with you, and focus on ways that you can keep their spirit with you and fill your heart instead of deplete yourself, and surround yourself with people who want to fill that light up with you and to remember that person in all of their beauty and glory, and to bring that strength to you. Happy birthday, Andreas. Thank you so much for listening to the Surviving Siblings podcast. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did creating it for you, then share it on your chosen social media platform. And don't forget to tag us at Surviving Siblings Podcast so that more surviving siblings can find us. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Surviving Siblings Podcast. All links can be found in the show notes, so be sure to check those out too. Thank you again for the support. Until the next episode, keep on surviving, my surviving siblings.